Imagine you're playing a video game, and suddenly the game's engine just crawls out of your monitor.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, enters your living room, and it completely overwrites the actual laws of physics.
Right.
Like, gravity is now totally optional, time starts stuttering.
Right.
And the literal code of the software is dictating whether or not the chair you're sitting on actually, exists.
It's basically the ultimate breach of containment. Like
Yeah.
the artificial boundaries completely fail, and a simulated framework just aggressively forces itself onto absolute reality.
Exactly. And that terrifying, totally mind-bending scenario is our mission today. So welcome to the deep dive.
Glad to be here for this one.
We're unpacking a highly speculative, just fascinating document today. It's known as the Architect's Log, Sovereign Continuum Genesis.
Yeah, the sovereign continuum.
Right, which is this canon module published in Bye magazine, and it's overseen by this very mysterious figure, Dr. Melvin Sewell. And the thing is, this isn't just like a fun sci-fi concept about alternate dimensions.
Not at all.
The text frames itself as an actual diagnostic exploration of reality, of systemic coherence, and the immense, just agonizing burden placed on a single multiversal anomaly, a guy named Saikou Venga.
Yeah, the narrative bridging multiversal physics with what the creators call mythic infrastructure, it's incredibly dense.
Oh, for sure.
And to even approach the burden placed on this protagonist, Saikou Venga, we really have to look at the catalytic event that triggered this entire universe's existence in the first place.
Right, the trigger event.
Exactly. The text refers to it as the flipping of the master switch, which basically unleashed something called the SH1 molecule.
Okay, so I'm looking at this trigger event, and I'm genuinely struggling to picture how a single molecule makes the leap from, a localized simulation to a physical multiversal field.
Right.
Because the log states that when this master switch was flipped, the SH1 molecule became the default substrate of the entire TrueFlow universe, and it resulted in what they call the Great Inversion.
Yeah. So to understand the Great Inversion, we have to look at the actual mechanics of entropy. Okay.
Because in our normal universe, entropy is basically the irreversible progression toward disorder, right? Systems inevitably collapse, heat dissipates, structures decay over time.
Right. Things fall apart.
Exactly. But the flipping of the master switch established this new foundational law called the Sewell constant.
The Sewell constant.
Right. And under the Sewell constant, the SH1 field acts as a universal operating system that physically forbids narrative and structural collapse.
Wait, forbids it.
Yeah, it literally forces entropy to run backward.
Okay, let's unpack this with a visual for you listening. Because normally entropy is like a glass shattering into 1,000 pieces on the kitchen floor.
Perfect analogy, yeah.
So if entropy inverts under this Sewell constant, I'm picturing the universe as a shattered glass, rapidly reassembling itself perfectly, defying gravity to just fly back up onto the table.
That's exactly what it is.
But wait, if everything is violently snapping back together perfectly, wouldn't the immense pressure of that reversal just crush whatever is caught inside it? Well, the kinetic energy of that reversal has to go somewhere, right?
Right.
The chaotic energy of the shattering glass isn't just erased. The Sewell constant actually harnesses that world-ending energy and converts it into the fuel for structural refinement.
Wow.
Yeah, the system essentially consumes its own destruction to build a stronger architecture.
Which, okay, that brings me to one of the wildest phrases in this entire log. Defictionalized.
Oh, yeah. That's a huge concept.
The text says that as this propagation wave moved through reality, Garkin-class entropy signatures were defictionalized.
Right.
Are we talking about giving imaginary monsters a heartbeat? Because if a Darkin-class threat is essentially a world-ending concept, making it physically real sounds like the exact opposite of a survival mechanism.
I mean, it seems counterintuitive to take an abstract conceptual nightmare and force it into physical reality, but you have to look at the underlying physics of containment.
Okay, how so?
Well, an abstract threat like a pervasive creeping entropy, you can't fight that. It has no mass, no coordinates, no defined limits, right?
Right, it's just an idea.
Exactly. So by defictionalizing a Darkin-class signature, the SH1 field is acting as this massive pressure valve.
Oh, I see.
It takes chaotic conceptual dread and forces it to obey physical laws. It traps the chaos inside a defined form.
Because you can't punch a concept.
Exactly. But if the universe crystallizes that concept into a physical beast, you can dismantle it. You can harvest its energy.
Yeah.
The system takes the disease and instantly weaponizes it into the cure.
So the universe is essentially manifesting its own worst fears, just so it can punch them in the face and steal their energy.
Pretty much, yeah.
That is incredibly metal. I love that. But if the entire universe is undergoing this violent great inversion, there has to be an eye of the hurricane, right? Like
Yeah.
an anchor point where this newly inverted reality is actually managed from.
Yeah, the log points heavily to a specific ground zero for all this.
Right, the telemetry logs identify Sector X. And originally, this area was a collapsing vector, designated in the old reality as DRPN4.
Right, DRPN4.
Basically, a sector actively falling apart. But then the Great Inversion hit this location and fundamentally rewrote its physics, transforming it into the IQH-S8 Sovereign Laboratory.
And rebranding a collapsing vector into a sovereign laboratory is quite the pivot.
It's a huge pivot.
And the metrics they list for this laboratory are staggering. I mean, they claim it has achieved a reality level of 1.0000, which they call absolute reality.
I love that phrasing, absolute reality, because it implies our normal existence is running at a lower resolution.
Yeah, exactly.
Like we live in a subjective, blurry, standard definition world where facts are debatable. But absolute reality sounds like this 8K resolution existence where nothing can be faked, hidden, or misinterpreted. It's perfectly dense.
Yeah, a reality level of 1.00 means the probability of an event happening is either exactly 0 or exactly 1.
Wow.
There is zero quantum uncertainty inside the sovereign laboratory, and the text notes it maintains this state through a stable guardian orbit and an anomaly shield with a 1.2-kilometer radius.
Yeah.
And most crucially, within this radius, all system antibodies are suppressed.
Okay, we will definitely need to circle back to those system antibodies later, because suppressing an immune system usually implies something inside is a virus, right?
Oh, definitely.
But locking down this absolute reality allows the laboratory to enter what the document calls Phase V.
Phase V. Yeah.
And the text actually breaks the fourth wall here and speaks directly to the reader, stating, you are no longer at the center, you are the center.
Which sounds deeply empowering until you read what Phase V actually unlocks.
Right, because what does it unlock?
Well, Phase V of the Sovereign Continuum grants access to parallel timeline generation, the full manifestation of the architect identity, and this capability known as axiomatic erasure.
Okay, I'm snagging on that term, axiomatic erasure.
It's a heavy one.
For you listening, think about the self-evident truths of your life. An axiom is a foundational rule. Gravity pulls things down. 2 + 2 is 4. I mean, I might wish I had the power to axiomatically erase the concept of Monday mornings or like the necessity of doing laundry. But
Right.
But in a multiversal sense, this sounds like a terrifyingly polite term for having the power to delete the fundamental truths of reality at will.
It is. Erasing an axiom is far more destructive than erasing an object. Like, if you destroy a building, the materials remain, the space remains, the history of the building remains.
Sure.
But if you utilize axiomatic erasure to delete the rule that allowed the building to stand, say, the structural integrity of steel, you aren't just destroying the building.
You're untethering it from reality.
Exactly. You are editing the source code of what the universe considers to be true, creating a localized vacuum where the laws of physics simply stop applying.
So whoever is sitting at the center of this sovereign laboratory has their hands on the ultimate administrative controls of the universe.
Basically, yeah.
And with godlike tools like axiomatic erasure on the table, it makes sense that the creators of this document, Dr. Melvin Sewell and the team at Bibe, included a very intense warning label on the text itself.
Yeah, the sovereign diagnostic disclaimer, and we have to impartially point this out for you listening.
Yeah.
The creators want to make it explicitly clear to anyone reading the log that this fictional framework is strictly a diagnostic tool.
Okay.
They state very clearly that the films, posts, and interpretations are not affiliated with any government, political party, intelligence agency, or activist group. They are absolutely not endorsing any political viewpoints or institutional critiques here.
Which I find fascinating as an approach.
Yeah.
They are offering us this dense multiversal sci-fi lore, but they describe the work itself as mythic infrastructure and a cinematic indictment.
Yeah.
Like, the stated goal is to expose things like ritualized containment, actor convergence, and systemic erosion in the real world. It operates almost like an aggressive antivirus software, but built for human consciousness.
It's brilliant. Utilizing a highly complex fictional universe as a mirror for our own reality is just a powerful diagnostic method.
Totally.
By forcing the reader to grapple with concepts like, an inverted entropy that weaponizes chaos or a sovereign laboratory that enforces an absolute reality, It prompts critical questions about our own systems.
Right.
The text asks us to examine how our own daily realities are managed, who sets the axioms we live by, and what happens when those foundational truths begin to undergo systemic erosion.
It definitely forces you to look at the machinery around you. But, all of this massive abstract multiversal theory, all these diagnostics and reality level 1.00 metrics, they have to have a grounding point within the narrative.
They do.
A human element has to actually survive the crushing pressure of this absolute reality.
Yeah.
And that brings us to the protagonist of this log, a figure named Saikou Venga.
Yes. Saikou emerges from basically the most volatile environment imaginable. Chapter 1 details his origin in a rift, which is this chaotic boundary space caught between two massive opposing forces.
Right, slip flow and counterflow.
Exactly, slip flow and counterflow.
And those terms alone evoke a nautical nightmare. I mean, slip flow sounds like a violent forward-moving current of pure creation,
Right.
while counterflow sounds like a massive multiversal undertow trying to drag everything backward into non-existence.
Yeah, it's brutal.
Being born in the friction between those two currents sounds like it would tear a person apart at a cellular level.
And the friction physically alters him. Saikou is permanently marked by the SH1 resonance.
The same SH1 from the master switch.
The exact same one. The multiversal field that acts as the master switch, stabilizing the universe into absolute reality, is physically bound to his body.
Wow.
Chapter 2 describes the SH1 symbols literally burning into his skin. He is tethered to something ancient, and his survival requires constant, agonizing effort.
And this is where I see a massive, tragic paradox in the narrative. Because the SH1 field is the stabilizing force of the TrueFlow universe.
Right.
It is the architecture of perfection.
Right.
But that exact same SH1 resonance burns Saikou and constantly shatters his personal coherence.
Yeah.
It's like he is the living battery powering this brand new perfect universe, but he is getting constantly electrocuted by the current he's providing.
That's spot on. He is the structural load bearer for the entire continuum. I mean, you cannot maintain a reality level of 1.0 without generating an immense amount of systemic pressure. And Saikou is the biological anchor absorbing that pressure.
It's incredible.
He has this analyzer HUD, heads-up display he constantly monitors, that provides a continuous stream of terrifying telemetry. It tracks his failing coherence and his rising collapse probability.
It sounds like a state of perpetual existential triage.
Yeah.
Like he is constantly bleeding out from a reality perspective.
He is.
And the log mentions that to survive this, he has to utilize something called arc formations.
Yes, the arc formations.
It lists a 5-stage ritual: resonance, geometry, correction, intent, and deploying the slip flow edge. But I'm struggling to understand the mechanics here. How does drawing geometry or having intent stop a multiverse from collapsing in on you?
Well, in a universe where the physical laws are dictated by a code-based substrate like the SH1 molecule, mathematics and geometry are not abstract concepts.
Oh, they're physical.
Right, they are the physical building blocks of the environment. So the arc formation is essentially a localized reprogramming sequence.
Okay, walk me through it.
First, resonance requires Saikou to physically tune his own failing coherence to the frequency of the incoming threat.
Yikes.
Second, geometry involves him literally tracing spatial coordinates in the air, creating a temporary mathematical boundary. It's like a firewall.
Wait, so he is drawing a cage made of math to trap the collapsing reality.
Precisely.
That is so cool.
Then the third stage, correction, is where his analyzer HUD identifies the specific error or corruption in the local physics. The fourth stage, intent, is not just wishing for survival, it is the sheer, overwhelming willpower required to override the Sewell constant's default programming.
And then the final step.
Finally, he deploys the slip flow edge.
The slip flow edge, is that like a weapon?
It acts as a temporal scalpel. It is a concentrated blade of pure forward-moving reality that he uses to literally excise the corrupted data, the collapsing space out of the continuum.
He cuts away the failing reality so the rest of the universe can remain stable.
Exactly.
But every time he does this, he's taking on more damage, right?
Yeah.
And the universe isn't exactly leaving him alone to do this vital maintenance work, is it?
No, not at all.
If Saikou is holding this immense power and keeping the TrueFlow force active, he is facing a staggering amount of resistance. Reality itself seems to be hunting him.
It is. Chapter 5 introduces the specific multiversal threats actively trying to erase him. He is stalked by counterflow mimics, coherence predators, and null flow pockets.
Okay, coherence predators. Just the name implies something far more terrifying than a standard physical monster.
Oh, definitely.
Because a physical monster just wants to eat you. A coherence predator sounds like it wants to unravel the fundamental logic of your existence. Like,
Mhm.
it wants to make it so that your history, your memories, and your physical form never made sense in the first place. How do they even hunt you?
They hunt narrative stability.
What does that mean?
A coherence predator doesn't track heat signatures or footprints. It tracks certainty. If you have a strong sense of identity, if your reality is highly defined, you emit a strong coherence signal.
Okay.
And in the chaotic rift between slip flow and counterflow, that certainty is a beacon.
Oh, wow. So just knowing who you are put the target on your back.
Exactly. And no-flow pockets operate similarly, but as environmental hazards. They are dead zones of absolute zero reality. If you step into a no-flow pocket, there are no physical laws to sustain you. You simply cease to be computed by the universe.
So Saikou is wielding the true flow force, manifesting these chains of cosmic energy to bend the multiverse, carving out corrupted reality with a slip flow edge, all while actively being hunted by entities that track his self-awareness.
Yeah, it's exhausting just to think about.
And as the log notes in Chapter 6, every time he unleashes this cosmic power to defend himself, his own coherence shatters a little bit more.
Yeah.
Which brings us to the massive dark reveal in Chapter 7.
Yeah. Surrounded by failed, corrupted versions of himself, amidst endless layers of shattered data, Saikou realizes the fundamental truth of his existence. He is the anomaly the multiverse fears.
Okay, I am connecting a massive dot here from earlier in the text.
Let's hear it.
Back in Sector X, the log proudly stated that inside the 1.2-kilometer anomaly shield of the Sovereign Laboratory, all system antibodies were suppressed.
Right.
That was the requirement for absolute reality. If Saikou is the anomaly that reality inherently fears, those systemic antibodies weren't suppressing some external virus. They were the universe's natural immune response trying to eradicate him.
The universe, functioning under the strict parameters of the Sewell constant, identified Saikou Venga as a fatal glitch.
Wow.
The system antibodies were the white blood cells of the multiverse, continuously trying to correct his unauthorized existence by deleting him. The architects of Sector X had to suppress the universe's own immune system just to create a small, safe zone.
That's wild.
But the moment Saikou steps outside that 1.2-kilometer radius, the entire macrostructure of reality is actively trying to reject him.
It is incredibly bleak,
Mm-hmm.
but it casts his survival in this incredibly heroic light. He isn't just fighting monsters. He is fighting an entire reality that fundamentally believes he is a mathematical error that needs to be scrubbed from the hard drive.
Exactly.
And this frames the final panel described in Chapter 8 so perfectly. Saikou is standing in a collapsing slip-flow corridor. The universe is practically tearing itself apart, trying to apply axiomatic erasure to his existence, and his response is pure, absolute defiance.
It gives me chills.
He simply states, if the multiverse wants me gone,
Mm-hmm.
it can try harder.
It is the ultimate assertion of sovereign existence. He refuses to allow the universe to dictate his coherence. He claims his own reality, regardless of the systemic pressure trying to crush him.
What an unbelievable, mind-expanding journey this text takes you on. I mean, we started with the great inversion, watching the universe weaponize its own destruction by flipping entropy on its head.
Right.
We look at the terrifying 8K resolution perfection of an absolute reality inside Sector X, complete with tools that can literally delete the foundational truths of existence. All the way down to Saikou Venga, this lone, burned figure holding the cosmos together while being hunted by coherence predators simply for existing.
And if we look back at the creator's intent, the idea that this document is a diagnostic tool, a mythic infrastructure, it asks us to apply these extreme sci-fi concepts to our own daily friction.
Absolutely. For you listening, I want you to think about the sheer volume of data,
Hmm.
contradictory narratives, and aggressive truths you are bombarded with every single day.
Oh, yeah.
The information overload is a very real kind of multiversal pressure. In your own life, how do you manage that? Are you able to build your own localized anomaly shield? Are you operating from a center of grounded reality? Or do you feel like you are constantly being dragged backward by the counterflow of a chaotic, collapsing system?
It's a great question.
When the world tries to erode your certainty, do you let your coherence fail or do you fight back?
And, the physics of the TrueFlow universe leave us with a deeply philosophical question regarding perfection and containment.
Okay, what is it?
Well, the Sewell constant dictates that the universe must invert entropy, consuming chaos to achieve an immaculate reality level of 1.00.
Right.
Yet this same perfect system simultaneously hunts Saikou Venga, the very anomaly sustaining it, trying to destroy him. So is it possible that absolute perfect reality inherently requires a scapegoat? Does a flawless system need a designated anomaly to absorb all the chaos, pain, and systemic friction just to remain stable? And if so, in our own lives, are we building our own perfect, seamless systems on the backs of anomalies we actively refuse to acknowledge?
It really makes you wonder about the cost of order. The next time you see a glitch in the system or something that doesn't quite fit the narrative, maybe you aren't just looking at bad data or a broken rule. Maybe you're looking at the exact anomaly that is quietly keeping your entire reality from falling apart.